right now with another 20,000 coppers set for the chop. What do we think of wealthy households clubbing together to pay for their own dedicated bobbies? 0207 173 5555 is the number you need. Is it fair? Residents in the posh London Borough of Hampstead are trying to raise 200 grand, £13 a year each, to pay for 3 officers to patrol their streets. The average price of a home is £1.3 million. They claim they need the extra help because the high-value homes attract lots of burglars. Begs the question, are crimes against property of greater concern than the crimes against people? 12 teenagers stabbed to death in the capital in the last 12 months, more often than not in poorer neighbourhoods where locals might not be able to afford to pay for extra cops. And why should they, when we all pay for police cover from our council tax bills? This is two-tier policing, but is it wrong? Well, Rebecca said she felt very uncomfortable. Even if these people can afford it, it's not for the good of everyone. Jeremy, who used to live in the area, reckons the real solution would be to stop cutting existing services, which there's a certain logic to that. And Scarlett thought if you could afford to pay a little more to keep your family safe, you'd probably do it. But whether you should or not, that's where your calls come in. Storm.
Got Simon on line 1.
Morning, Simon.
Good morning, Matthew.
So, it's not really the big society, but can you object?
Well, I think I agree with Jeremy. If you shouldn't reduce services, but could this be a way of providing extra funding for the police so that the police could get junior policemen on the street, get the senior police officers to do more investigation of...
Well, you would have more officers than you would have if you don't do this, but the issue for us as a society is that those officers would only be looking after the interests of a very small group of people who, one might argue, have quite a lot of wealth and might very well be able to afford private security. These officers wouldn't be for the greater good.
But then, couldn't you move the more senior officers to other areas? You've got 3 officers for Hampstead. They're providing work for duties that other 3 officers would do.
Well, if you were paying attention, Simon, as I'm sure you were, the Met has pledged to match the 3 officers the residents pay for with 3 officers, dedicated officers from the pool of resources that is the Metropolitan Police. So it's not only are they paying for private officers, they're getting the Met to pledge 3 extra officers to bring the total up to 6.
I understand that. I'm looking at a slightly bigger picture.
Right.
Because I'm in Nottinghamshire. There's a housing estate that's going to be built in Loughborough for 3,000 houses.
Right.
I don't know if they've funded officers, police officers, fire service, ambulance service for that area.
Well, every council taxpayer funds the police. So, yes, they have.
That. But when they do the planning, do the developers provide extra funding for the police to get?
Well, Simon, if you think about it, your argument doesn't really make much sense at all, because it doesn't matter how many coppers are funded out of how much council tax we have. As I explained earlier, whatever number of coppers we've started with, we're going to end up with 20,000 less in this government, 17,000 less from the previous coalition government, because all the money that we raise that could be going to fund our coppers is also having a large section of it's having to go off to pay off our deficit. So it's kind of irrelevant. We're losing officers that we have been paying for, because some of our resources are being used to pay off debts that the bankers ran up, many of which live in houses in Hampstead. Simon, thank you for the call. Did he miss part 1? Maybe he did. Let's try another, please.
We've got Leanne on line 4.
Morning, Leanne.
Morning. Hi, Matthew.
Hi there. Is it fair?
I think that in times where there's cuts, any wealthy people who are turning around and saying, actually, we want to put extra money into this, should be welcomed.
When it's only for themselves?
Well, that's my point, because it's of national interest and it's a national police force, so they shouldn't be allowed to control where those extra bobbies are then used.
Totally
agree. If they're
agree.
putting extra in, fine, that's welcomed, but it's for everybody's greater good.
Okay.
Actually, I think we need to be looking at things like, philanthropy, where
I've heard of it.
In the past, donors do donate money to national causes, to social issues.
Yeah.
And maybe postcodes could be recognised that this postcode has paid for 3 bobbies this year. And that could be something done naturally. I'm sure there's other postcode areas who actually would club together, put extra money in. But
You could put gold stars in their postcode, couldn't you? Or you did sort of,
Yeah, exactly.
NW3, which is that's the Hampstead one, isn't it?
Yeah.
NW3, NW3, and a little gold star to show it's a wealthy bar, so the burglars know where to go. Yeah.
What about?
What if they matched it? What if they matched it with another? So they said, OK, we're going to pay for
like
one,
like
but
twin
you have to be
towning.
twinned with another.
That's a good idea.
So you're a millionaire banker, right, who's kept your bonus doing dodgy deals, right, who's brought the country to its knees, and someone comes around and said, we'd like to pay £13. For that, you're going to get 1.5 officers to patrol your streets, and 1.5 go to Woolworth.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are going to pay for that, the bankers?
Well, they should. I think they should. It's a good idea.
I think that's an excellent idea to offset it. So if you want to pay for extra,
so what you're actually saying,
just to pay for double for other areas.
What you're actually saying, Leanne is saying, is pay more tax.
Yeah, well,
that's what you're saying.
Effectively what it is.
It's wealthy people should pay more tax, and then that money could be used to fund police officers both in their neighbourhoods and elsewhere.
Yeah, but it's not a tax because it's not compulsory. We're saying this is an option. So it's not a tax. You're saying there's an option. If you want to put in extra money, you're going to have to pay for double the amount for poorer areas to get them in your area.
You're going to put in the extra money, but your next-door neighbour lives in an even bigger house, right, which has got just loads of Rolex watches stuck on the front door. They're not going to pay anything extra because they think, well, Jeremy's stupid enough to pay the charge for these extra officers. His officer can protect my house.
That's the beauty of democracy, is that you have a choice.
We made a good plan there, Joe. I don't see why he shot us down at all.
Because human nature is essentially selfish, isn't it? Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Selfish people who look after
They
our
are
own
still
interests.
being selfish, but it means in order to be selfish, they have to help others on the route to help themselves.
Do you know what? I suspect the only reason the Hampstead thing will work, if indeed it does work, is you have loads of self-interested people looking after their self-interest.
There's a lot of QCs that live in Hampstead. There's a lot of very powerful people within the law. I'm just saying that's
okay. Leanne, bless you. Thank you very much for the call. Leanne, they're saying essentially we should all pay a bit more to get better services.
We've got Roy on line 3.
Good morning, Roy.
Good morning, Matthew. How are you?
Very well, sir. So, would you like to pay extra for extra coppers in your area?
Certainly not. This crime wave is sweeping all over the country, not just in the Knightsbridge, the Kensington and the Hampstead areas. It's up to the police to put the policemen back on the streets. Years ago, we had these policemen on the street, crime wasn't as high as this. People know now they can get away with doing absolutely anything they like. There's no deterrent, there's no strong prison sentences. It's just all gone. The police have just become a profit-making organisation rather than a sort of they're more of a reactive force now rather than a proactive force.
I certainly know police officers who, if from the Met, who would agree with that. They were saying they got to do loads of paperwork. They're not as effective as they could be, and they'll certainly be a whole lot less effective when they lose 20,000 from amongst their ranks, Roy.
Well, we've got people leaving the police force at all ranks. I mean, I've got some police friends, and they was in the armed police during the riots, and they were chasing from West London to North London and East London because there wasn't enough units on the road. And they just couldn't control that number of people. If anything happened on a larger scale, what would happen to London? Well,
London would have a lot of problems, but the people of Hampstead will probably be OK, Roy. Thank you for the call. Got to take a break, after which it's Scarlett with all the other headlines for you, including